Don't often take photos on a surf beach, but we're here in Asturias today. I'm going to take a few photos on a surf beach. So what I've done is I've got the camera in there with the 16 to 35mm lens. I'm probably going to have it wide open. I'm going to try and take some photos while we're sort of crashing around in the waves. I've got the minimum shutter speed set to 1/1000th, and I've got a small aperture, so I've got f8 because I want to make sure that I get everything in focus. So I'm just going to be snapping like mad, and hopefully we get a few people kind of rolling around in the surf. We'll see how that goes. Anyway, that's the idea. Luca's going to be my subject. And off we go with this fella. While my intention was to immediately start taking photographs under the water, my son Luca had other ideas. It became fairly clear early in the swim that he was a bit concerned by the size of the waves. Even though he's a very strong and confident swimmer, he's used to calmer waters, so was reluctant to go very deep. As is often the case with photography, I had to adjust my expectations, and so rather than take photos below the waves, I soon found myself making photographs above the surface. Mostly this involved Luca jumping over the waves and having fun in the shallows. To be sure, there were images to be made here. They just weren't the ones that I'd gone out with the intention of making. So to break this down a little bit further, there are a few different types of photographs that I normally have in my back pocket to use in situations like this. The first type of photograph is a relatively straight action shot of Luca crashing through the waves. The fast shutter speed I'd already set in readiness for the underwater shots was fine in this instance, as it froze both my subject in action and the flowing water. Getting close to the action is crucial. There's no use buying an expensive, bulky, underwater camera housing if the photographs you're taking with it could have just as easily been made with a camera without a housing. Getting in the wave and looking backwards is an example of this. The problem with doing this means that splashing around the lens port is more likely to get drops of water on it, which is avoided either with no drop solution, this stuff, or with saliva on the lens port, licking it, letting it dry, then rubbing it off. Or a combination of these two, although I have to say this stuff doesn't taste so great. Inevitably there will be times when drops on the lens just can't be avoided. This is why taking loads of photographs and continually checking for this is essential. With everything going on, it's easy to forget to do this. There may be times when the water on the port might work to your advantage, which brings me to a second type of photograph, which is to use the water effect on the port in an abstract way. For this type of photo, the effects you can get are very much down to chance, which is another reason why taking a lot of photographs makes a lot of sense. A third and related photograph in this scenario is a kind of street aesthetic, getting people in random but nevertheless organically patterned poses in the water. This is more of a decisive moment approach to photography, where the elements of public life come together momentarily and the shutter is triggered at the right moment to capture this. I was more focused on trying to get some interesting photographs of Luca, but as I saw random members of the public passing by the lens, I did hit the shutter button with the intention of trying to capture some of these decisive moments. In the context of these decisive moments, water droplets on the lens port are a bit easier to tolerate in the finished image and can sometimes benefit the image, for example, by framing or accentuating parts of the main subject. Especially with water photography, I always try to capture images where the human is a small part of a much larger natural environment. I think it helps to convey a sense of people's actions being determined by much larger and stronger natural forces. Luca did finally get a little bit more comfortable with the water, and he borrowed my goggles and went under the water. However, he still wasn't keen on going too deep, so I could only get these images of him swimming in the shallow water. The problem in the shallows was all the sand, seaweed and other underwater particulate being kicked up by the waves, which meant the images were not as clean as I would have liked them to be. Nevertheless, this was starting to get to the kind of images that I'd set out to make. Crucially, I wasn't just interested in getting photographs of him swimming. I wanted to get that churning wave wash above him as well, to convey a strong sense of movement and action, and of someone confidently navigating this sort of churning wild sea. This is something I think I approached in these final shots, with Luca finally gaining more confidence. They're certainly not perfectly framed. There's far more particulated in the water than I would have liked, but they're almost getting towards what I was trying to do. With this type of photography, you never really know until you've actually got home and reviewed the images on the computer, whether you've got some good shots or not. So there's a lot of chance, there's a lot of luck involved. You need to be ready for that, you need to be prepared. The thing to do is not to try and review when you're out there in the water, because you'll miss a bunch of shots trying to do that. Get home, get in front of the computer, download everything and review it at that point, and you'll be pleasantly surprised and also disappointed probably. After my swim with Luca, I went out with my partner Ma, who's also a very strong and confident swimmer and not afraid to go into deeper water. So I did feel with Ma that I was much more likely to achieve the sorts of images that I'd set out to achieve that day. And I should note here that I made a big faux pas on my second swim. After taking loads of Osmo action footage in my first swim with Luca, I merrily went out on my second swim. Unbeknownst to me, the battery was just about to die, and it died within about 2 minutes of me getting in the water, which I didn't realise, I didn't even notice until I got back to the beach after my long swim. I thought I was getting all this video footage, I wasn't getting it, and it's doubly frustrating when I had 2 fully charged batteries sitting in my bag on the beach. These things happen, but an important lesson for anyone is to check your battery level before you get in the water. I took some photographs above the surface with Ma as well. Again, I was using a fast shutter speed to freeze the water flowing over Ma's face. One thing I did notice in the surf was the difficulty in framing with intention under the water, as it can get pretty hectic. For this reason, the framing is a little off in some of these images. The water was crashing overhead. I love the sensation of being beneath the waves, the light and the dark shadows that all the foam above creates under the sea. I took several sequences of Ma diving under the waves, and finally approached something of what I'd initially set out to achieve at the beginning of the swim. The rolling wave overhead and the action of Ma swimming under it with the other swimmers independently negotiating the wave as well. This was the action shot that I'd set out to achieve at the beginning of the day. Maybe it's not quite there, but that's what I was trying to achieve. So that concludes my look at the photographs I took under the surf, or above the surf even, in Asturias not so long ago. I hope you've got something out of that and you've enjoyed me talking through some of those images that I made. If you did, I'd really appreciate if you can subscribe to my channel, give me a like and leave me a comment. What would you like to see more of? I've got loads of stuff still waiting to edit, and I'll get round to that very soon. Hopefully I'll see you for that in the next one. Until then, bye for now. This stuff. Whee! I'll try that again.